Hello, Lavinia. Thank you very much for this second draft of your Global Perspectives individual report. I was a bit worried after the first draft because great topic, but I thought your structure needed a bit of work, and you've obviously gone away and done that, and I think there's some really exciting stuff happening now. So first of all, I think you've got a really lovely writing style. I really thoroughly enjoyed reading this. I thought it was really interesting, and when the examiner reads it, I know that he or she will that they will find it the same. So a few things we can still improve upon, but lots of things I really enjoyed. So your title was, Can Horror Movies Have a Serious Impact in its Psychological Effects on People and its Representation of Mental Health? First question that I need to ask you is, same as before, can you please include the prescribed topic in there? So I need to know, is this about family? Is this about which of those 8 prescribed topics? So just make sure, even if it's in brackets or at the front before a semicolon, that you tell me the prescribed topic, because it could apply to many. You then go on to give me an introduction. Again, some good stuff in the introduction, but a few things that I will ask you questions about. You said here the portrayal of characters in most horror films has been usually cliche. Has it? For example, Nosferatu was groundbreaking at the time. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein's monster, again, groundbreaking. And even things like vampires and werewolves can be dated back to the Romans. So I think, to say that horror's been cliched is a bit unfair. I think often it's groundbreaking, but that's something we could discuss and debate. And you've said that in the last decade it started to change. So like I say, I think the Romans would take umbrage with that. And then you've said that it includes some people with some sort of mental health issue. I think some sort of is a bit vague, you need to be more precise. But I think it's important you use this section to justify why you've chosen this topic. So for example, to give you one story that made the media quite recently, there was a story in America of the new Joker movie. It's not new anymore, but the Joker movie with Joaquin Phoenix. And I think not long before that was made, somebody had gone into a Batman movie in America with a machine gun or submachine gun and fired on people indiscriminately. And many people, in interviews with Joaquin Phoenix, asked him about whether he was glorifying these kind of people with mental health issues who had access to guns in America. It's led to a debate about whether Americans should be allowed to have guns, and the Fifth Amendment, whatever amendment it is, second, third, the right to bear arms. So you might say that, well, that's an issue, bowling for Columbine, or what was happening in many schools in America. You might ask yourself, well, does that make it a really contemporary issue? And just stand out, use the word from the Mark scheme, justification. Why is your issue so important? You then go on to give me some background information about development of horror. I think you do this very well. Just be careful when quoting from things like Esquire magazine, which is kind of like a glossy magazine rather than an academic article. It's okay to include it a little bit, but make sure you back it up with more academic text as well. But you give some good context, some really good examples with The Witch, A Quiet Place, Us, Black Swan, Get Out, The Babadook. I've never heard of that one, but it sounds exciting. And I like where you give information about, how there's a link between politics and art here. So you mentioned things like wars with Iraq and Afghanistan, and link that with things like The Walking Dead and zombies, about being traumatized. So I think there's definitely something in there. There's a counter argument though, which is, for example, when 9/11 took place, suddenly there were lots of superhero movies because people wanted a superhero to save them from terrible terrorists. So you had things like Spider-Man, the Hulk, and Captain America started coming out. So I think there's an argument that yes, it creates, art affects life and life impacts on art, but I think there's an argument that actually it creates zombie and horror, but it also creates superheroes. So give a counter. Good context. You've told me why you want to watch horror. You said there isn't much data on this. Again, you can say that if you qualify it. So tell me where you've looked and analyse that information for me. But moving on to the second page, good background information, lots of detail. I'm very happy with what you've written there. You then come to your first issue, the effects of watching horror movies. And you said common psychological effects of horror include adrenaline rush, heart rate, respiration increase. I think it's a good first point. Heart attack, insomnia, and so on. Again, I'd like a few more global and national perspectives on this, please. And make it clear, a global perspective is and national perspective is. I thought that was distinctly lacking in this section, Lavinia, and after all, this is a global perspectives essay. You'll be given marks not for the context and the background, but for how well you deal with different perspectives. So I would like to know different countries and their views on horror movies, effectively. The second point, again, you need to really break this down. You said that this leads on to the next effect, anxiety. So again, point 2, anxiety, and again, I need some more global and national. You've mentioned some general things there, but nothing that tells me global or national. And then the third issue, representation of mental health. Again, some great stuff. The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, one of my favourite movies. You've got some good references. Yeah, really, really good stuff there. But again, I need you to tell me different countries and their views on the issue. So I think you've now got a nice structure, good background. You will justify the issue very nicely, but I need some more global and then national perspectives. You then conclude, you kind of give me a bit of a personal perspective, but again, I think you can tell me more here, Lavinia. Clearly, you're obviously interested in horror movies. You wouldn't be writing this if you didn't. And I know from knowing you that you were in, I believe, The Little Shop of Horrors, which, even though it's like a comedy, when you look at it, it's kind of scary, right? A man eating plants. So I'd like you to tell me a bit more about your personal perspective and develop that maybe in your conclusion. But again, just like in the first 3 sections, this is my personal perspective and link it back to the earlier perspectives and what you believe in. Particularly because you're writing with Halloween around the corner, I think this would be a really interesting one for you to take further, and there'll be lots online. I like your bibliography too, Lavinia, lots of detail in the sources you have used, but there aren't that many at the moment, and they do tend to be internet-based sources, which is okay, but do get yourself to the library, do look online, do look at JSTOR, find some academic texts to really bolster your bibliography as well. But a very good job. I enjoyed it a lot. 100 times better, I thought, than the first effort, but still a little bit of work to go until we get it to where we need to be. But I'm confident you have all the tools for it to be a top draw individual report. Okay, thank you, Lavinia, for getting it in on time, for being one of the first to hand it in. Makes my life much easier, and I'm looking forward to the third draft. Bye-bye.